You are watching the Friday edition of the news on DBS TV. Thanks for joining us. The 11th session of Cameroon Business Forum that took place in Yaoundé on Thursday, October 22nd, rounded up with measures to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on the economic life of the country. Unlike previous sessions, this year's edition came with so many particularities. Only 50 participants attended. The session took place in Yaoundé and did not end with recommendations, as has always been the case in previous editions. Being a forum for dialogue between the state and the private sector, for 11 years and still counting, one finds it difficult getting palpable results from this come together. Cameroon business environment away from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic has not been much better. Some economic experts point to many crises Cameroon encountered before the pandemic set in as reason for the dire economic situation. Others think the government is not helping matters either, with all forms of taxes and administrative procedures. For 11 years, very little has been noticed in the business world in Cameroon. It would therefore be time to rethink and re-strategize on giving the business environment in Cameroon the push it deserves if we are to attain the expected goals. Accused of breaking ethical rules, Karimo, a cosmetic brand in Cameroon, has been given 48 hours to take down its publicities promoting voluntary skin bleaching. The advert shows a light-skinned woman majestically seated with 4 other people, all dark-skinned, at her feet and showing allegiance to her. Accompanied by the message, "Put them at your feet," the controversial ad has struck the sensitivity of Cameroonians, sparking different reactions, especially complaints from many social media users. The government neither stayed silent as it reacted to the advertising campaign. The Minister of Communication, spokesperson for the government, published a press release on October 22 in which he criticizes the said campaign, which he says conveys a degrading message for people with black skin. Minister Emmanuel René Sadi further stated that it places judgment on people based on the color of their skin and therefore likely to undermine their dignity. The posters have been pasted in all the streets of major cities, including Yaoundé and Douala, as well as on social media networks. The Minister of Communication has thus given 48 hours to the promoter of the brand, Karine Mongwe, to remove all posters of this campaign, both on billboards and on the company's social media accounts. René Emmanuel Sadi, while emphasizing on the regulatory framework for advertising, also warned that the young Cameroonian entrepreneur who has never hidden her support for voluntary skin depigmentation will face the sanctions provided by the law on the issue upon failure to take down the controversial adverts. A birth certificate is a document not so big yet very difficult to get by hundreds of children in the east region of Cameroon in particular and in the country as a whole. In order to tackle this huge registration backlog, stakeholders in the National Civil Status Registration Office, BUNEC, of the East Region held a working session to revamp the process of getting one. During the discussions, statistics showed the region occupies the 3rd position with the lowest record. In 2019, the Civil Registration Office carried out a study and discovered about 400,000 school children had no birth certificates. It is not uncommon for parents to wait until a child is preparing to start school before obtaining the document. Mayors of the municipalities of Baturi and Yokaduma explained it is a result of the lack of finances, logistics, inadequate human resources, and ignorance that these children are not recognized by the state.
There are many people who are not aware, who do not have their birth certification. So our means, the means we have in our municipalities are not sufficient, and we have to capitalize with what our partners bring to us, and also before the legal authorities bring, so that we shall be able to handle the situation.
In order to reverse the situation, the National Civil Status Registration Office, in collaboration with the local administration and civil society organizations, are seeing into it that a lot of educative talks and sensitization takes place. It is important to equally maximize the cost of production and provide a fertile ground to train skilled personnel. At the end of the given period, the government of Cameroon and international NGOs freely offer to establish these birth certificates. Recall that a birth certificate is the child's first identity paper that shows the child's name, date of birth, and parents' names, amongst other things. Failure to acquire a child's birth certificate renders them stateless. They are missing in vital statistics and cannot participate in any official exam or carry out their civil duties to the country. Moving to Africa, hundreds of Guinean nationals marched on the country's embassy in Dakar, Senegal, for the second day in a row to protest against the outcome of the presidential election in their country. They were deprived of going to the polls by their government, which decided to not organize the ballot in Senegal, thereby stopping them from exercising their civil responsibilities. Security forces of the country responded by firing tear gas to disperse the crowd. According to Mohamed Diallo, former president of the Association of the Guinean People, the march was never planned. It came naturally. People called each other after the proclamation of the first result, he specified, before adding the people are fed up with the injustice imposed on their brothers and sisters in Guinea. The protesters are also calling on the economic community of West African states, the African Union, and the international community to act, saying that if Guinea sinks, neighboring countries will bear the brunt of the impact. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has called on his citizens to stop demonstrating and warns them not to undermine the national security. This was in a short televised speech on Thursday, October 22, following the unrest that has gripped the country in recent days. The commercial hub, Lagos, and other parts of the country have seen shootings, looting of shops, and a prison set ablaze since security forces earlier this week opened fire on a peaceful protest calling for better governance and an end to police brutality in the city of 20 million inhabitants. The protest has provoked the suspension of the ongoing national examination for final year students in secondary schools amid violence clashes. The National Examination Council, NECO, said the decision to suspend the examinations was also due to the round-the-clock curfew imposed by some state governors, adding that the exams will resume in mid-November. Without making any mention of the deadly shooting of peaceful protesters that prompted international outrage, Buhari called on Nigerian youths to discontinue the street protest and constructively engage in the government in finding solutions. Your voice has been heard loud and clear, and we are responding, he said. Voters in Seychelles have begun the three-day process of choosing a president and lawmakers. Seychelles, an archipelago in the Indian Ocean, decided to host the two polls simultaneously to save funds as the country has suffered economically from the effects of COVID-19 lockdown on its tourism industry, the mainstream of Seychelles' economy. Voters will decide if President Dani Fouare of the United Seychelles Party will be elected for the first time after taking over from predecessor James Michel, who resigned. Other two main opposition candidates vying for the post of president are Alain Saint-Anger from the One Seychelles Party And Wavel Ramkalawan from the Seychelles Democratic Union. Special stations have been set up across the country to first cater to essential workers who are vital in caring for the rest of the population during the COVID-19 pandemic, complying with the World Health Organization's guidelines to ensure they mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Election analysts from the island nation say the 2020 presidential election will be somewhat evenly matched, as United Seychelles and the Seychelles Democratic Union both share the almost equal number of voters, following across 115 islands that make up the archipelago. The island is, however, well known for maintaining free and fair elections. Three-time Lebanese Prime Minister Saad Hariri has been renamed to the post of Prime Minister on Thursday to create a cabinet that can lift the country out of its worst economic crisis in decades. Mr. Hariri made his comeback almost a year after stepping down under pressure from a protest movement demanding a change of Lebanon's political system. He has been tasked with forming his fourth government, winning a slim majority of votes in parliament. Hariri's dramatic return was enabled by the votes of 65 MPs from across the country's political spectrum. In a short address following his designation, Hariri promised to form a government of non-partisan experts to implement economic and political reforms outlined in an initiative proposed by French President Emmanuel Macron during a September visit. Besides, the new leader faces the task of securing international support and averting the country's collapse. It should be noted that Lebanon is under international pressure to form a crisis cabinet to address the plummeting economy made worse by COVID-19 and the blast at the Beirut port on August 4. Since then, economic conditions have worsened significantly, with Lebanon unable to pay its huge global debts and its first draining central bank reserves, leading to shortages of essential goods such as fuel, wheat, and medicine. President Donald Trump and his Democratic challenger Joe Biden on Thursday, October 22, met in their last debate in Nashville, Tennessee, one of the final chances for both men to make their case to a television audience of tens of millions of voters. The White House contenders clashed over COVID-19 and race while trading corruption charges. Following that political brawl, debate organizers muted microphones during the candidates' opening statements on each topic to minimize disruption. Trump's difficulty articulating a defense of his handling of the coronavirus remains a drag on his campaign, as he declared that the virus was going away and that a vaccine would be ready by the end of the year, while Mr. Biden warned the nation was heading towards a dark winter. On racial topics, 74-year-old Trump brought up the 1994 crime bill that Mr. Biden helped draft and which Black Lives Matter blames for the massive incarceration of African Americans, while Mr. Biden said Trump was one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire, he added. However, with less than 2 weeks to the election day, Biden is leading most national polls and has a narrower advantage in the battleground of states that could decide the race. More than 42 million people have already cast their ballots this far. Over to France, 6 days after curfews came into effect in Greater Paris and 8 other metropolitan areas, French Prime Minister Jean Castex has announced new measures to stem the spread of coronavirus as cases rise across the country. Just as after the announcement came, France recorded 41,822 new COVID-19 cases over the past 24 hours. The new measures are due to come into effect at midnight this Friday, October 23. It would impact a total of 46 million people, or 2/3 of the French population, and would include some overseas territories, Jean Castex said. The curfew measures would remain in place for 6 weeks. The situation would be evaluated next week, and curfew rules might be tightened if necessary, the head of government added. The restrictions would be extended to 38 more administrative departments, as well as to the overseas territory of Polynesia. Residents need to download a certificate for activities permitted after hours, such as travel to or from work, for medical attention, to visit a dependent relative, or to walk a dog. Countries around Europe are struggling with rising infection rates. France, Italy, Spain and the UK are all hotspots. The Polish Constitutional Court has given a very controversial green light to further tighten the abortion law, already amongst the most restrictive in the EU. After the ruling goes into effect, abortion will only be allowed in Poland in the case of rape, incest, or a threat to the mother's health and life, which make up only 2% of legal terminations conducted in recent years. Rights groups had urged the government to not increase restrictions. Protesters have gathered across Poland after the Constitutional Court ruled on Thursday that abortion due to defects of the fetus was unconstitutional. The decision provoked an immediate reaction from the Council of European Commissioner for Human Rights, who said the day marked a sad day for women's rights. He wrote on Twitter, "Removing the basis for almost all legal abortions in Poland amounts to a ban and violates human rights. Conservative values have played a growing role in public life in Poland since the Nationalist Law and Justice Party came into power 5 years ago on a promise to defend what it sees as the nation's traditional Catholic character." European Parliament has awarded the Sakharov Prize for Human Rights to the Belarusian movement opposing President Alexander Lukashenko. EU Parliament President David Sassoli on Thursday noted that the movement has on its side something that brute force can never defeat: the truth, calling on them not to give up on their fight with assurances of their support. It should be noted that Belarusians have been protesting for several weeks against the disputed re-election of President Lukashenko, who claimed an overwhelming victory in the election. European Union member states have failed to recognize Lukashenko's legitimacy and threaten sanctions if he doesn't end the brutality and enters into a dialogue with the opposition. The annual Sakharov Prize honors individuals and groups of people who fight for the defense of human rights and freedom of thought. That marks the end of today's Friday's edition of the news on DBS TV. Thanks for staying with us, and do have a great evening in the company of our programs.